Under scrutiny and the bright lights, Ty Simpson breathed new life into his 2026 NFL draft stock.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast. Cover your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an NFL draft analyst with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He's the director of scouting with the Draft Network, in 2019 national champion with the LSU Tigers. And as always, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shot for being our everydayers. It's time to talk all things quarterback, college football, playoff edition from round one. QBs of the week, those stock rising performances and those stock falling performances. But before we get into that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Keith, we ended the show talking about Ty Simpson yesterday. We're going to open the show talking about Ty Simpson. He is my QB of the week. Yep. And Keith, a lot of people probably want, like you said, did he have some over just like elite performance, 450 yards, 3-4 touchdowns? No, he was 18 of 29, 62% completion percentage, 232 yards passing, average 8 yards per attempt. He had 2 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and he didn't put the ball in harm's way. Not only that, he could have had a bigger and better day if some of those passes were caught. He had his receivers dropped 4 passes in this game. You know what I mean? And early in that game, Keith, down 17-0, like they had bad field positioning, and the offense was just struggling. Like Caden Proctor, I think he lost it. We didn't get a chance to talk about him. Yes, I think he lost some money. Just kind of teams continue to attack this offensive line with twists, stunts, and games, making guys move laterally, making them move off their spot, change direction, communicate, pass things off, and Bama just didn't handle it well early in that game. Not only that, because there was a play, might have been play 14 of the game for them. They ran a double screen, and it was a double screen, and Oklahoma sent Kip Lewis, their linebacker. He was kind of, I think, linebacker, safety, whatever he plays. He was in the overhang. He disguised that he was dropping off in the coverage, and he blitzed, and he got a sack for like 9 yards on Ty Simpson. Well, in that spot, it really wasn't on Ty Simpson, in my opinion, because they also had an edge defender on the opposite side who got in the throwing lane, so he couldn't throw the quick screen to the right. So he had to hold the ball. He got sacked. The way he was able to battle back and make some big-time throws off the back foot, converting on third downs, in the high red zone, the throw to Isaiah Horton was a dime down the right sideline. And I'm like, this is what an NFL quarterback is supposed to look like. Make the right throws, make the reads, don't put the ball in harm's way. Ty Simpson did the things he was supposed to do and led his team back from a big deficit to go get a win.
Yeah, he did, DP. And it's to me, it's the mental toughness. And when I'm gonna take this as a QB of the week, because there are a couple of points I want to make, but I know that we're going to get into draft profiles, right, for each individual draft prospect, and I kind of want to save a little bit for that to get into the overarching conversation. But I'm gonna take it for this individual week, and you're playing at Oklahoma, right? And I'm getting into, because we talked about the physical part, I want to talk about the mental part, right? And so just setting the scene, you're playing at Oklahoma, and your coach is coaching for his job, essentially, right? Because everybody's saying if they lose, he's getting fired, or it's best he take the Michigan job, right? And probably is. It may still be best he take the Michigan
still be
job.
best.
who knows at the end of the day, right? But you know that. You hear it, right? And this is not the days of the 1990s or the early 2000s and things like that, where if you didn't want to hear something, you just simply don't cut on the TV. Right?
Thanks.
Everybody's on their phone, and you like in these social media apps and things like that, like you can't not see the stuff that's being said. Now, like you can probably try to minimize it, but the only way you don't see is if you take the Fernando Mendoza route, right? Is where you use LinkedIn, right? Just go get a LinkedIn profile and apply for jobs, I guess, right? Like that's the only way you don't see it. But Ty Simpson has seen all of this stuff, right? Then you're playing at Oklahoma with a team that you lost to already, right? And like you said, your head coach coaching for his job, and then the playoffs and all of the pressure surmounting, and even individual pressure. DP, like, should he go to the draft? Should he not? If he doesn't play well, then he should stay, right? And these are all things that you're thinking about entering this game. And guess what? When the whistle got blown, DP, and they spotted the football, he just went out there and played football. And I like Ty Simpson, and people are going to ask me, well, why are you still in on him, or why are you in on him, period? I like my quarterbacks mentally tough. That's how I like my quarterbacks. Bring me my quarterbacks mentally tough, the guys that can go through some stuff, the guys that look at brick walls and say, you know what, I'm going to run through, right? And Ty Simpson is showing me that in a one-season sample size, I feel like I know a lot about this young man. So I look at this Oklahoma game, and like you said, the post-game conferences showed personality, but it's been plenty of post-game conferences or pre-game stuff that if you pay attention to him, is like, I kind of like his savviness. I like the way he approaches the game of football overall, and I don't mind him being my franchise quarterback. And I'm willing to take a swing and a shot on this type of toughness and grit.
Yeah, and I think going back to again, like trying not to get too far into his profile, but Keith, I've been saying it, like he's a polished quarterback from the aspect when you watch how many times we watched probably 100 over especially since we took over this pod, a couple years ago. We've watched hundreds of quarterbacks at this point. How many times you see guys get pressure, they backpedal all the way out, or they spin out? Nobody navigates and move the pocket, and you talk, looking back at the old guard of Drew Brees and Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and those guys, when they just step, okay, you got edge pressure, but my interior offensive line is good. I'm gonna step up and I'm gonna drill this in cut.
Middle of the field.
I'm gonna throw in the middle of the field, right? That's what Ty Simpson lives. That's why when you look at it's a detriment. It's how to put this. It's a tip of the cap to Ty Simpson that, hey, Kirby Smart said, we're going to load up between the numbers and take that away from you, because we know if we give it to you, first of all, you cooked us with this the first time. If we didn't do it, you were going to do it again, right? Because they run them dagger concepts and those crossers. Well, because you don't have the greatest wide receiver core, we can take that away, because these guys they're going to get if they do get deep, Ryan Williams, you're not going to catch the ball. Jeremy Bernard, you're probably not going to go deep because that's not your game. Isaiah Horton, separation isn't your game like that. And you don't have a tight end, or at the time the tight end was hurt and he's still hurt. They had some like custom made shoe to protect his foot. And I'm like, how bad was this injury that you got to get a custom made cleat to protect your foot from being stepped on and everything? So this is probably one of the, I'll say it bluntly, this is probably one of the worst supporting casts Alabama teams I've seen in recent years, Keith. This is not what we're accustomed. This is not the standard. I think what Nick Saban was talking about, that when he said, hey, coaching, making sure my guys don't play down to competition, I tell them play to the standard. Well, Alabama's not recruiting to the standard, or their receiving core isn't to the standard that we've seen. So for me, I look at why I'm still in on Ty Simpson. I'm like, okay, this is probably the worst it's going to look for him, and he gets to an NFL team.
Or, you know what I mean? In DP, even if it's not the worst, right? You know what? Let's do this, DP. Let's continue this conversation, because we at the transition mark. So let's do this. Yeah. Let's continue this conversation of Ty Simpson, and I want to jump back into that transitional part, right, from college to the NFL. Ty Simpson, what it could, what it can look like, and just bringing some previous quarterbacks, right, and why they've been ebbs and flows in different careers. So DP, let's continue this Ty Simpson conversation coming up next.
NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the games start to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly. And you can jump into the moment right now with the 2026 NFL Draft and bet on who will be the #1 overall pick. Fernando Mendoza, quarterback out of Indiana, is the betting odds favorite at -180, but Dante Moore is right behind him at a +250. Ty Simpson is +1700. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Continuing our conversation about Ty Simpson projecting to the NFL, why we are still in on the Alabama quarterback, Keith. Let's continue this conversation about Ty Simpson.
Yeah, so because you made a point that said like this may be the worst that it's going to be, right? And I'm gonna make a conversation that this may be what it's going to be in the NFL, right? Like in the sense of the fact of you may have a third, fourth round wide receiver, right? Talking about a Jeremy Bernard. You may have a flashy guy that went in the first round, talking in regards to Ryan Williams, but maybe just isn't inconsistent. It's inconsistent, right? You may have a tight end that's a backup that your starting tight end went down, right? You may have a running back that's a third, fourth, fifth round pick, right? That's serviceable. You may have an okay offensive line, not a great offensive line. That's plenty of recipes for a lot of NFL teams if you look at the average batting, right? And because people always ask me this, like there is not a conversation. I want to loop all this together because you talked about the Bama standard in the past, right? That Bama standard in the past is not the NFL standard. You don't have 4 first-round picks to throw to when you're in the NFL. It just doesn't work. And even the teams that do have it, a couple of the teams we're talking about, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Dallas Cowboys who have those duos, right? We're still looking at them like, do you pay them that much money? Should you pay them that much money? Both of y'all are going to miss the playoffs. What do you do? Right? So it's and I want to say this, that for the Ty Simpson, are we getting a more realistic picture? Let's change the lens, right? That are we actually getting a more realistic picture of what Ty Simpson will be in the NFL versus the quarterbacks that came from Bama in the past, the Tua Tagovailoas, the Bryce Youngs, the Mac Jones, right? To where it was an unrealistic picture and that they'll probably never meet that standard. And
good point.
I was a Bryce Young guy, right? Like I like Bryce Young, but and I had him as the number 1 overall pick. But people always ask me, well, do you think he's going to be the best quarterback in the NFL? Nope. Do you think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL? Nope. I think he can float somewhere around 10-ish, right? Between 10 and 12, which that's a quarterback that's good enough that you can win with. But I feel really good about his floor, understanding that his ceiling is not the best quarterback, right? I get that. And so I'm looking at Ty Simpson, and you just look at the career trajectories and projections of I made the comp yesterday, the Sam Darnolds, right? And those type of players that, hey, you give them good situations, they can produce well, and every NFL franchise succeed to put their quarterbacks in good situations. Like, and let's talk about this because everybody wants to kill Dak Prescott now, right? I was probably one of the only people that said Dak Prescott is a good quarterback, right?
Same.
And he has depleted resources with the Cowboys. And then now they get him a serviceable number 2 wide receiver, right, in a run game. And it's like, oh, Dak can play good, and now he's a feel-good story, right? So we have to start really breaking down these situations that these quarterbacks are in. And I said this last year, I was like, and I kept saying this, I was not trying to be a Jalen Milroe truther. I watched the Oklahoma game last year where the tight end dropped the football, and I'm like, I don't know what else to do, right? And you look at Ty Simpson, and I think was Kirk Herbstreit on this call? I couldn't remember. I think because I think he was back-to-back days. Shout out to Kirk Herbstreit for being the MVP, right? Doing Amazon Prime and then firing up
3 straight days. 3 straight days.
Oh, yeah. He did it 3 straight
Thursday Night Football, the game with Bama and OU. Then they traveled to what was it, with the game day for Texas A&M and Miami. They were there. They were in person.
Yep. You're right. He put in the work, man. Kick your feet up today. Kick your feet up. Right.
Kick your feet up.
But Kirk Herbstreit talked about it, and he was just like, yeah, that's another drop, right? Like in Ryan Williams and all the drops that he had, it's like, yeah, this is not a great situation, but that makes me even more comfortable is that I'm seeing what this could like, and I'm watching him in a situation that has an element of chaos added to it, because that's what it's probably going to be like in the NFL.
Yeah, and to your point, kid, I'm glad everything you said is true, because that's how I've kind of shifted when I'm watching these quarterbacks is, not blaming the Bryce and the Tuas and Mac Jones, but it's more so like, it's not realistic that you're going to have this type of team when you go to the league. So it's different if you're sitting there.
I don't mean to cut you off. I was there. We had Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. I'm like, and they get in the NFL, and I'm like, well, nobody was going to stop us in college, right? Like nobody in the NFL has an answer for that. Like, and if they put them on the same team in the NFL, they would say this is cheating. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
We had those guys in college together.
100%, right? So it's like watching those guys, and it's like, all right, how, like, when you're used to winning, right? Like people always like to quote that and put that in the quarterback's profile. Oh, he's a winner. Is he, or was he on a winning team? Like it's different when you're a winner. Like for me, I look at the Fernando Mendoza, I'm like, his team's winning, but he's a winner as well because of the things he's done in late game situations. Even when he didn't have a statistical, numerical great game, he still made the big time throws, NFL throws and reads and plays, where it's like, this is what it would look like, right? So for me with Ty Simpson, it's the same thing. I'm projecting them with better weapons, man. Yep. Like projecting with better weapons and better offensive line play, Keith. But go ahead. What were you about to say?
No, I mean, let's take 3 of the quarterbacks that we assume to be elite guys, right? I'll take 4 of them, 4 young quarterbacks that we assume to be elite guys. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert. First off, none of those guys were number 1 overall picks, right? Second of all of those guys had question marks coming out of college. Third of all, we seen good and bad from each one of those guys, right? Like through their college career, we was like, okay, we really like this, but this is a concern. And so what I'm saying is that in college, they had the opportunity and the ability to go through some stuff. They went through it, right? And that's what we have to realize, is that we're not expecting perfection in college. And if you're perfect in college, that automatically means that you're going to be perfect in the NFL. It very rarely do you get that, right? Like that's a one-off. That's the generational thing. That's the generational situation, is that you're perfect in college and you get to the NFL and you're great in the NFL. And that very rarely happens. So
very rarely happens.
Yeah, wrapping this all back to Ty Simpson, DP, is that, and I'm not saying that I'm pounding the table for this young man is for sure going to be a Pro Bowl Hall of Fame-esque quarterback. No, I'm saying what I've seen from him, it's good enough that I would take him in the first round, and I feel like he has the opportunity to play really good football in the NFL. Now, there are a bevy of factors past that I hope that as a NFL draft community that we're starting to understand that makes a franchise quarterback and makes a Super Bowl winner, right? But I think he's talented and skilled enough and mentally tough enough to play in the NFL.
If you take the drops and the missed protections and everything else he's dealing with at Alabama, you flip that, Keith, we go to LA, the Chargers. When these things happen to Justin Herbert, and if they lose, you can't blame Justin Herbert. You say, well, receivers didn't catch the ball, O-line is hurt, they didn't protect, they don't have a run game because Amari Hampton's hurt. Or with the Chiefs before Pat Mahomes tore his ACL, get well soon. To Pat, if Rashid Rice wasn't open, if Xavier Worthy isn't tracking the ball right, whatever the case may be, and these guys they don't make the right play, the blame isn't shifted to Mahomes. If he didn't play well, it's shifted to everybody else. So it's like, let's give that same kind of grace. That's why, hey, listen, I get watching games and reacting live to games. But the film never lies. All 22, that eye in the sky never lies. And you get to really go snap to snap, play per play, and say, okay, what happened here? You know what I mean? Like, what went wrong? And when you get to go into that and say, okay, like we talked about, like there's times when I'm watching a bad game or a statistical bad game from a quarterback, and I'm like, all right, snap by snap, who was at fault here? Like, what was, like, this play didn't work out? Was it because you were inaccurate and you made the wrong decision, or you turned it over? Or was there free runners that somebody didn't pick up? If 3 guys are blocking 1 guy and you got 2 guys running scot-free, that's a problem. That's not the QB's problem. I mean, it's essentially the QB's problem because he's about to get lit up. But the fact of the matter is somebody's got to pick those guys up. I just feel like watching these quarterbacks, we got to start really extrapolating reps, assigning blame as you're watching the film. Like, okay, you know what? This isn't your fault, Ty or Fernando or Dante or whoever else, Keith. So that's kind of how I look at it. But to end this Ty Simpson conversation, want to give love to Dante more. He did what we wanted him to do.
Well,
he has to kind of.
Yeah, let's do this, DP, because we're about to have to transition. Let's pick up that conversation. Let's pick up the Dante Moore conversation. Have talk. So this is what we'll do. We'll talk Dante Moore for a couple minutes, and then we're going to talk stock fallers too, right? So we'll finish the
Yeah.
first part of the next segment talking about Dante Moore and his game against JMU, and then we'll wrap with some stock fallers. DP, let's do that. Coming up next.
Car shopping should feel exciting, not confusing. And with Car Gurus, you get the confidence you deserve. They cut through all the noise so you can actually see the best deals on the cars you want. Because when it comes to a big purchase, you deserve the best deal. And Car Gurus makes the whole process simple by giving you real information, real deal ratings, and more listings than anyone else. So you can shop the way you want. Use Car Gurus deal ratings to compare cars quickly without having to guess whether the price is fair. Car Gurus connects you with trusted dealerships for a transparent and hassle-free buying process. With over 4 million listings, the most of any major online automotive marketplace, you will always find the best deal. Shop the way you want with the tools, data, and unbiased deal ratings that make it easy. Buy or sell your next car today at cargurus.com. That's CARGURUS.com. CarGurus.com. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everydayers. And thank you for being part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in America, all because of you, our everydayers. Dante Moore, he didn't have a stock rising performance. He just did what we wanted him to do for the most part. He was 18 to 26, Keith, completion percentage of 69%, 300 yards passing, over almost 12 yards per attempt, 4 passing touchdowns. I think he ran for 1 in this game as well. He ran for 1 in the low red zone. And he did have 2 kind of ugly interceptions. Shout out to my guy, Elijah Cope, came down with 1 of them. I think right before the half and everything. The other one was returned it was in the low red zone where he got pressured and I think his hand got hit and everything. And and the ball just kind of fluttered out of his hand. He lost control of it. But yeah, he just did what we wanted him to do, Keith. He for the most part of this game, he dominated JMU for the most part. And honestly, like their team, they came out with a purpose in terms of Oregon. They wanted to pound the rock. They wanted to create explosive plays. I think their first 3 scores, they didn't have drives of 6 plays. It was like 3 or 4 plays touchdown. It was just like,
yeah, I
right.
think that was the stat. Yeah, it was crazy.
And I was like, I'm gonna be turning this off very soon. But shout out to Dante Moore, man. Dante Moore did what he was supposed to do. I know a lot of overreacting was like, man, I've got him over Fernando. I'm like, guys, there's nothing in this game that will put him at QB1. Like this isn't level competition. Like we just talked about, like with Ty Simpson and those old Bama teams. This isn't a standard. You do this against Texas Tech, and we could talk. Do it against that defense, that pass rush. Do it against JMU. I'm like, he just did what I expected him to do.
Yeah, no, he took his shots, right? He was calculated. Like this was a early pressure, but they did what they needed to do to relieve the pressure to where this just became like a comfortable get through my progressions, deliver the football, take a couple shots, put the gas pedal down when we need to, try to get my guys involved, things like that. And I think from Dante Moore, if there was an element that you wanted to take away from it, probably accuracy, right? Like that was one thing. It's like, okay, that was a good football right there. Okay, that was a good ball right there. Things like that. That's probably what you take away from it. But everything we just talked about, the mental part of it, I think this was on a stress level of 1 to 10, right? This was a 2, right? Because and the reason I give it a 2 or 3 is because you had to come out early, but they got on them so early and often that it's like, all right, college football playoff committee, this is exactly what we thought was going to happen. And this is what we don't want to see ever again. So let's fix it, and we'll fix college football playoffs another time. But DP stock fallers, right? I mentioned Marcel Reed, and I because I want to talk about with him and what is an added element to this Texas A&M offense and just him, period, right? And because I think an agility and elusive part, I think you can put him in the Jaden Daniels and Lamar Jackson bucket. But I also think that he's going to have to embrace that part too, meaning that like these guys came in with different offenses, and I'm talking about Lamar Jackson. I'm sorry, came in with a different offensive coordinator, Greg Roman, right? And it was utilizing his legs, and it was a progression in learning the game and slowly taking the training wheels off to quote unquote being that pocket passer. I just wonder if with Marcel Reed that the game still needs to slow down a little bit more for him, and maybe doing that via the run game and letting him potentially learn one passing concept at a time, right? Like put a little bit more on his plate, put 5% more on, then 5% more, right? Like just take it step by step instead of saying, okay, cool, we know you can run, be a pocket passer, right? Like I think the A&M offense, it evolves with him, and all this is like part of being a draft prospect, and luckily that the NFL embraces dual threat quarterbacks now. But it's being that run team, potentially having the triple option stuff and all of these different things that you can add different elements to him and let him use his legs, and maybe he is a guy that carries the ball 10 times a game, and we look at him as one of the most explosive running threats that we've seen.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think, for me with him, I think my comp for him was an explosive version of Bryce. He just doesn't have the consistent accuracy of Bryce because he's listed. I think he's probably 6 foot. He's at 6'1", like 80. Let me see. Was he 180, 185? I think that 185 is a little bit, generous, more around 175 because he's a thin, lean kid. And I think going back to school is the right decision for him. Keith, at the end of the day, my thought process, and this is where I think it gets a little muddy for him. They said Texas A&M got bread. They got money. You know what I mean? There's a lot of quarterbacks in the transfer portal, Keith. Like, there's a ton of them.
Do you think it's a conversation of like fit, like from Texas A&M's perspective? Like, where do you see? I guess I should have allowed you to finish talking, but go ahead.
No, you're straight. This is a team that they have a good defense. They have a lot of weapons, a lot of young weapons. I think Casey Concepcion does go to the league. Le'Veon Moss is going to go to the league because you think he's a senior and everything. But you got Ruben Owens and Mario Craver and Ashton Bethel Roman, and they got a lot of guys, a lot of youth on that team. Still, the question to you, I think the question that Mike Elko has to ask himself is, do I believe that you're going to take a big enough leap next year for us to, in a game like this again, that you're the deciding factor in the proper way that we win? If the portal didn't have a Dylan Raiola, a DJ Lagway, a Brendan Sorsby, potentially, Drew Mestamaker, it's probably like 10 quarters. I think I tried to prepare people for this, and they didn't listen. The transfer portal is college football's free agency now. Like, seeing how this, like, now they got that 2-week window. It's a specific time that you can enter, and teams got to make their decisions. Oh, yeah, it's free agency now, baby. Like, it's the highest bidder, all of that, and the right situation and everything. I wonder if I'm Mike Elko, or if Mike Elko will think, man, what if a Dylan Raiola says, I want to come there. I know you have Marcel, but I want to be your starting quarterback. Do you turn down the chance to add somebody that doesn't have some of the physical limitations that Marcel has? Because you do want him to get better mentally, but it's like physically, he's not going to get any bigger. He's not going to grow taller, right? Like, so his play style doesn't match his body type either.
Well, yeah, I want to flip it then. Okay, I understand that from Texas A&M perspective. Is there a certain destination that Marcel Reed, as a draft prospect, you think should go, that would help elevate his draft stock heading into the 2027 season, or 2027 NFL draft?
Man, I think I'll be honest with you, Keith. I think there's some ACC teams. Like, you think about VodTech with James Franklin coming over there, being the new head coach. Then they have NIL resources. They're already doing well in recruiting and things of that nature. I would look to that type, because it's almost like it's not that I want guys to run away from pressure, right? Spotlights. But sometimes, remember Kyle McCord, like how it was at Ohio State? And granted, Marcel played way better than Kyle McCord.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? And when he was at Ohio State with Marvin, it's been a ton of them. It's been a ton of them. No, you're good. It's been a ton of them. At Ohio State, he had all these weapons, and he just couldn't figure out consistency. He goes to Syracuse, where it's like off the beaten path. I don't got to worry about too much. I'm just here to play ball. And the expectations weren't like surmounting. And then he goes over there. He has a great season, you know what I mean? Knocks Miami and Cam Ward out of the playoffs, out of the ACC championship game. He throws for over 4,000 yards. He cooked that entire season, right? And I think he was like a 4th, 5th round pick. Like, I think it's going to a situation like Va Tech, 100%. I think you go to Va Tech and people will be like, oh, yeah, James Franklin's over there. James Franklin will be the talking point for everybody. They're like, oh, yeah, Marcel Reed's over there too. Cool. But they're not expecting you to lead them to an ACC title, lead them to a college football playoff berth. You go back to Texas A&M, you got here, right? The last 2 games of the season. Because honestly, if you don't lose to Texas, you in the SEC championship game against Bama, to be honest with you. And like, if you don't lose that game. So it's you and Bama, and then you keep a top 4 seed, and you don't even play this past weekend. You lose to Texas, and then you lose to Miami, to an ACC team, and the way you lost with turning the ball over, poor mechanics, inaccuracy, someplace where he can, I think for me, is like going somewhere where you could just press play on football and that's it. I think at College Station, it's not just pressing play on football and that's it. I think being at Texas A&M, the fan base, the boosters, everybody's expecting to get back to the CFP next year and for you to take a next step and be better and be the reason that we're here. Don't lose to Texas at the end of the season. Get to the SEC championship game because truthfully, you should have been in there. So I think that's one of them situations where it's like, you know what? I'm not saying run from pressure, but sometimes the expectations of it all could put a lot more on the kid than it needs to be.
Yeah. So I'm gonna wrap with this. That I was trying to explain a specific offense that I would like to see him in. Gus Malzahn. He did it with Nick Marshall at Auburn, right? He had Thomas Castanulis, rolling early on. I think Marcel Reed is a more gifted runner than him. And I think he's a more talented passer by far. And if you look at Florida State, they lost quite a few games that came down to honestly quarterback decision making. Quite a few of them. So, and I don't. Gus Malzahn is still on the staff at Florida State. We'll see because this is the coaching carousel, right? This is where we're at, and not advocating for Marcel Reed to even leave A&M, but I'm talking about a style of offense, right? And to our listeners who remember, when Nick Marshall went on that run, and just how Malzahn always has like some heavy run, motion, jet sweep, all of these different things, and he allows his quarterback to run the football, and get the job done. That way. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You'll find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.